The vast chamber of the Galactic Council hummed with the voices of 100 different species. Light streamed through the massive crystal dome above, casting rainbow patterns across the polished stone floor. At the center of the chamber, a hologram flickered. A dying star system, its central sun pulsing in angry red. "The Drecon system will collapse within 30 standard days," announced the council speaker, his voice echoing through the chamber. 3 colonies with a total population of 50,000 still remain in the danger zone. They require immediate evacuation. The proud warrior representatives of the council shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The Crack's ambassador, covered in gleaming battle armor, stood up first. "My people are warriors, not cargo haulers," he declared, mandibles clicking with disdain. "Such a rescue mission would bring no honor to our fleet." One by one, the other warrior races declined. The Vulture cited their ongoing military campaigns. The Nexus Collective claimed their ships were too valuable to risk. Each excuse sounded hollow in the Grand Chamber. Tom Miller, the human representative, sat quietly in his simple gray uniform. He wasn't impressive like the others. No sharp claws, no enhanced strength, no natural armor. Just a middle-aged man with graying hair and tired eyes. But as the last warrior race made their excuses, he pressed the button to speak. "Earth will send help," he said simply. The chamber erupted in laughter. The Crack's ambassador's mandibles quivered with amusement. "The humans, the species that puts warning labels on coffee cups," he mocked. "The ones who wear protective gear for simple maintenance work." Tom remained calm. "Yes, exactly those humans. We have experience with large-scale evacuations. We understand safety protocols." "Safety protocols." The Vulture representative spat the words like a curse. "You mean your cowardly need to plan for every possible failure?" "If being thorough means being cowardly, then yes," Tom replied. "We'll send our best ships and crews. The Earth Emergency Response Fleet can begin evacuation within 48 hours. The council speaker raised his hand for silence. "Representative Miller, you understand the risks. The radiation levels are extreme. The star's behavior is unpredictable. There's a reason why even our bravest warriors hesitate." Tom nodded. "We understand the risks perfectly. That's exactly why we're volunteering." Back on Earth, Captain Jane West received the mission briefing in her office at Fleet Command. She studied the data with careful attention, making notes and asking questions. No detail was too small, no scenario too unlikely to consider. "We'll need the new radiation shielding," she told her crew during the first planning session. "Double layers on all ships, and backup systems for the backup systems." Her crew, all veterans of difficult rescues, nodded in agreement. They knew their reputation among the alien races: overcautious, paranoid, obsessed with safety. They also knew that these very traits had kept them alive through countless dangerous missions. As the Earth fleet prepared for departure, alien observers watched with a mixture of amusement and contempt. They mocked the extensive safety drills, the redundant systems checks, the careful loading of emergency supplies. "Look at them," a Crack's observer sneered. "They're acting like they're heading into certain death. No warrior spirit at all." But Tom Miller, watching the preparations from the council chamber's observation deck, smiled quietly. He knew something the warriors didn't. That true courage wasn't about rushing blindly into danger. It was about facing danger with open eyes, understanding the risks, and taking every possible precaution to succeed. The Earth fleet departed exactly on schedule, their ships gleaming in the sunlight. Captain West stood on her bridge, reviewing emergency procedures one final time. She knew the alien races were watching, expecting them to fail or flee. But she also knew that 50,000 lives were counting on them, whether they realized it or not. As the fleet jumped into hyperspace, Tom Miller sent a final message to Captain West. "Show them what human courage really means." The mission to save the Drecon system had begun, and humanity's cowardly nature was about to prove its worth. The Earth Emergency Response Fleet's command center buzzed with activity. Massive screens displayed the dying Drakon system from every angle, while crew members worked at their stations with focused determination. Captain Jane West stood at the central planning table, surrounded by her top officers. "The star's becoming more unstable by the hour," explained Chief Engineer Mike Davis, pointing to the swirling patterns of solar activity. "These radiation bursts are stronger than anything we've dealt with before." "Then we'll strengthen our shields," Captain West replied firmly. "Double them, triple them, if we have to. I want every ship equipped with the experimental radiation plating." Lieutenant Rob Parker, the head of safety operations, spread out the evacuation plans. "We've identified landing zones on all 3 colonies. The biggest challenge will be Drakon III. It's directly facing the star's most active side." The planning session continued for hours. While other species might have considered this excessive, the humans methodically worked through every detail. They calculated fuel requirements, plotted emergency retreat vectors, and prepared for countless worst-case scenarios. In the ship's manufacturing bay, crews worked around the clock to modify their vessels. The standard shields weren't enough. They needed something special. Engineers installed layer upon layer of protection, testing each addition against simulated solar flares. "The other races think we're wasting time," Mike said as he adjusted a shield generator. "But I'd rather spend an extra day preparing than lose a ship in the rescue." The fleet's medical bay was equally busy. Dr. Anna Wilson supervised the preparation of radiation treatment facilities on every ship. "We're not just planning for the colonists," she explained to her team. "Our own crews will need protection too. Set up decontamination chambers at every airlock." Word arrived from the Galactic Council. The warrior races were placing bets on how quickly the humans would retreat. Captain West ignored the mockery, focusing instead on training her crews. They ran simulation after simulation, practicing every possible emergency. Again, she ordered after a failed evacuation drill. "We need to cut the loading time by 2 minutes. Lives will depend on this." In the ship's mess hall, crew members studied detailed maps of the colonies while eating. They memorized evacuation routes, discussed contingency plans, and shared ideas for improving their procedures. No detail was too small to consider. "Look at this," said Communications Officer Pete Brown, pointing to his tablet. "The Drakon colonies use different emergency signals than we do. We need to update our systems to recognize them." The preparation wasn't just physical, it was psychological too. The fleet's counselors worked with crew members, helping them prepare for the stress ahead. They knew that keeping calm under pressure would be crucial. "Remember," Lieutenant Parker told his safety teams, "panic kills. We stay focused, we follow procedures, and we get everyone out alive." Back on Earth, Tom Miller defended the fleet's methodical approach to the Council. Some representatives were growing impatient, claiming the humans were stalling. "Would you rather we rush in unprepared?" he asked them. "Every hour we spend planning now could save hundreds of lives later." As the final day of preparation arrived, Captain West gathered her crew for one last briefing. The massive hangar bay was packed with personnel, all wearing their newly modified protective suits. "I know the other races are laughing at us," she said, her voice carrying across the silent crowd. "They think our caution makes us weak. But I look at this fleet, at all of you, and I see something they don't understand. True strength isn't about charging blindly into danger. It's about respecting the risks enough to prepare for them." She paused, looking at the determined faces before her. "Every safety measure, every backup plan, every drill we've run. That's not cowardice. That's our commitment to bringing everyone home alive. Tomorrow, we prove that the human way works." The crew erupted in cheers. They knew they were ready. Their ships were the most heavily protected in the galaxy. Their plans covered every contingency. Their training had prepared them for anything. As the fleet made final preparations for departure, Captain West sent a message to all ships. Humanity's greatest strength is that we plan to succeed, not hope to survive. Let's show them how it's done. The rescue of the Drakon system was about to begin, and humanity's thorough preparation was about to face its ultimate test. The Earth fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Drakon system. The sight that greeted them made even the most experienced crew members catch their breath. The dying star filled the view screens, its surface writhing with massive solar flares and dark spots. It was far worse than their projections had shown. "Status report," Captain West commanded, her eyes fixed on the angry red giant before them. "Radiation levels are off the charts," Mike Davis reported from his engineering station. "The star's outer layers are already starting to peel away. We have less time than we thought." Through the fleet's viewports, they could see the 3 colony worlds. Drakon I and II were still relatively protected, but Drakon II was already feeling the star's fury. Its atmosphere glowed with auroras caused by the intense radiation. "Incoming transmission from Drakon II," Pete Brown announced. "They're losing their planetary shields. Temperature on the surface is rising rapidly." Captain West didn't hesitate. "Change of plans. We start with Drakon II. All ships, activate maximum shielding. Launch emergency beacon satellites to maintain communications through the interference." The fleet moved forward, their heavily armored ships pushing through waves of radiation that would have crippled lesser vessels. The warrior races watching from their safe observation points couldn't believe their eyes. "Those human ships look like floating fortresses," a Krax observer noted. "All that armor must make them incredibly slow." But the humans had planned for this too. Their ship's engines had been modified to compensate for the extra weight, and they moved with surprising agility through the solar storms. As they approached Drakon II, the true scale of the crisis became clear. The colony's main dome was cracking under the intense heat. Thousands of colonists huddled in underground shelters, waiting for rescue. "Landing zones are too hot," Lieutenant Parker reported. "Surface temperature is beyond safe limits for direct landing." Captain West nodded. "Deploy the heat shields. Begin Operation Umbrella." Massive shields unfolded from the rescue ships, creating protected corridors from the colony to the vessels. It was a technique the humans had developed specifically for this mission, inspired by their own planet's search and rescue operations. "First wave, move in," West ordered. "Medical teams standing by. Remember your training." The rescue ships descended through the burning atmosphere, their multiple layers of shielding holding against the intense heat and radiation. The alien observers watched in stunned silence as the humans methodically began their work. Inside the colony, panic turned to hope as the Earth teams made contact. The humans' calm efficiency was contagious, helping to organize the evacuation in orderly waves. "This way," guided a rescue team leader, directing colonists through the shielded corridors. "Stay together. Follow the marked paths. We'll get everyone out." Hour after hour, the ships made their runs. Each trip was calculated precisely, with no wasted motion or energy. The humans' careful planning began to pay off as ship after ship filled with refugees. 50% of Drakon II evacuated, Pete Brown reported. But the star's getting worse. Those solar flares are growing. A massive flare suddenly erupted from the star's surface, heading straight for their position. The alien observers expected the humans to flee, but Captain West had prepared for this too. "Execute Pattern Delta," she commanded. "All ships rotate shields to maximum coverage. Protect those evacuation corridors at all costs." The fleet moved like a well-oiled machine, their ships forming a protective barrier between the flare and the colony. Their reinforced shields held firm, though the strain made the vessels creak and groan. "How many left on the surface?" West asked as the flare passed. 3,000, came the reply. "We need another 2 hours." The star pulsed ominously, its surface roiling with increasing violence. They all knew more flares were coming, but not a single human ship broke formation or abandoned their post. Captain West opened a channel to all ships. This is what we trained for. This is why we prepared so thoroughly. Stay focused. Stay calm. We're not leaving until everyone is safe. The rescue continued under the angry glare of the dying star. Humanity's excessive caution proving to be exactly what was needed to save thousands of lives. In the observation posts, the warrior races watched in silence, beginning to understand that there was more than one kind of courage in the galaxy. With Dracon Ia's population safely evacuated, the Earth fleet turned their attention to the remaining colonies. The star's condition had deteriorated further, casting an eerie red glow across their ships' armored hulls. Dracon II, next, Captain West announced, studying the tactical display. Their shielding is stronger than Ioi's was, but they have twice the population. The fleet moved into position, their formation adapting to account for the increasing solar activity. Unlike the chaotic rescues depicted in popular entertainment, this was a carefully orchestrated dance of ships and safety protocols. Multiple plasma ejections detected from the star's surface. Mike Davis warned from his engineering station. They're following the pattern we predicted in Simulation 12. Captain West nodded. Implement evacuation pattern Gamma. All ships maintain double shield coverage. No gaps in the defensive line. The humans' methodical approach was paying off. While other species might have rushed in with a single massive evacuation, the Earth fleet worked in coordinated waves. Small groups of colonists were moved through protected corridors, processed through decontamination, and settled safely aboard the rescue ships. "Look at them," the Volshar observer commented. "They're moving so slowly, checking every step. Don't they realize time is running out?" But the humans' pace was deliberate. Each group of evacuees was properly documented, families were kept together, and medical conditions were noted and addressed. There would be no lost children or separated families in this evacuation. In the colony's main gathering area, Lieutenant Parker supervised the loading procedures. "Remember your training," he told his teams. "Scan every room twice. Mark cleared areas. No one gets left behind." The rescue teams moved through the colony with practiced efficiency. Their excessive safety gear, mocked by the warrior races, protected them from the increasing radiation and allowed them to work without breaks. Section 4 cleared, came a report. Moving to Section 5. Environmental systems failing in the outer rings. Dr. Anna Wilson's medical teams worked continuously, treating radiation exposure and heat exhaustion among the colonists. The extra medical facilities that had seemed so unnecessarily cautious during planning were now operating at full capacity. Another shield generator down on the colony's west side, Mike Davis reported. Temperature rising in those sections. Captain West adjusted the evacuation sequence instantly. Redirect teams to the western sectors. Priority evacuation for those areas. Maintain safety protocols. The warrior races watching from their observation posts were beginning to understand. What they had dismissed as cowardice was something else entirely, a different kind of strength, born from humanity's hard-learned lessons about disaster response. Hour after hour, the evacuation continued. The humans' careful planning meant they had fresh crews ready to rotate in, maintaining the same high standard of care throughout the operation. There was no rushing, no panic, just steady, relentless progress. 70% of Dracon I evacuated, Pete Brown announced. All critical cases transported. Remaining population is stable and organized. The star's rage increased, but the humans had planned for this too. Their ship's positioning kept them in the shadow of the planet when possible, and their layered shields handled the radiation when it couldn't be avoided. Final sectors being cleared now, Lieutenant Parker reported. All structures double-checked. No signs of remaining life forms. As the last colonists were loaded aboard, Captain West received a message from the Galactic Council. The warrior races were requesting data on the humans' evacuation procedures. Their cowardly approach had proven remarkably effective. Final ship loaded, came the report. Dracon II completely evacuated. No casualties. Captain West allowed herself a small smile. Begin withdrawal sequence. Maintain shield coverage until we clear the radiation zone. Next stop, Draken Eye. As the fleet pulled away from the now empty colony, their heavily armored ships moving in perfect formation, the alien observers finally understood what they were witnessing. This wasn't cowardice. It was courage refined by wisdom, strength tempered by care, and heroism expressed through preparation. The burning star raged behind them, but the humans pressed on, ready to save another colony with their methodical. The evacuation of Draken Eye was underway when the star decided to show its true fury. The humans' careful predictions had warned them this might happen, but the reality was still shocking to witness. Massive solar flare building up. Mike Davis shouted from his station. It's going to be 3 times larger than anything we've seen so far. The fleet was in the middle of transferring the last large group of colonists. Thousands of refugees were still moving through the protected corridors between the colony and the ships. Captain West's face remained calm, but her mind raced through their contingency plans. "Time to impact," she demanded. 4 minutes, Mike responded. "Standard shields won't hold against this one. Not even our reinforced ones." The alien observers at their distant posts watched in horror. Surely now the humans would flee, abandoning the remaining colonists to save themselves. But they didn't understand human nature. "Execute Emergency Protocol Delta 9. Captain West commanded. "All ships, form the shield wall. Engineering, prepare to redirect power from everything except life support." The human fleet moved with practiced precision. Their ships locked together in a predetermined pattern, combining their shield strength. It was a maneuver they had practiced countless times, though many had called it a waste of training time. 3 minutes to impact, Pete Brown announced. 2,000 colonists still in transit. Lieutenant Parker's voice came over the comm from the surface. "We need more time, Captain. There are still people in the deep shelters. They'll get their time." Captain West replied firmly. "Mike, implement the crazy plan we hoped we'd never need." Mike Davis nodded grimly. "Activating experimental shield modulation. Routing emergency power now." The human ships began to hum with energy as their shields synchronized in a way no other species had attempted. They were about to try something that their excessive testing had suggested might work, but had never been proven in real conditions. 2 minutes to impact, Pete called out. Flare is still growing. In the evacuation corridors, rescue teams worked with disciplined speed. Their protective gear, another unnecessary precaution, allowed them to keep working despite the increasing radiation. 1 minute, came the warning. Flare's electromagnetic pulse will hit first. Captain West opened a channel to all ships. "Hold formation. We've trained for this. Trust your equipment. Trust each other." The first wave hit, a massive electromagnetic pulse that would have crippled lesser ships. But the humans had planned for this too. Their hardened systems continued functioning, protected by layers of shielding that other races had called paranoid. 30 seconds to main impact. The massive flare filled their view screens now, a wall of plasma rushing toward them at incredible speed. The humans' synchronized shields began to glow as they prepared to face its fury. "All colonists aboard," Lieutenant Parker reported. "Final teams returning now." 10 seconds. Captain West's voice remained steady. "Brace for impact. Maintain shield synchronization." The flare struck with the force of 1,000 storms. The human ships groaned under the strain, their combined shields glowing white-hot. But they held. The excessive preparation, the unnecessary reinforcement, the wasteful backup systems, all of it proved its worth in those crucial seconds. Through their sensors, they could see other ships in the system scrambling to escape the flare's reach. But the human fleet stood their ground, their formation unbroken, their shields protecting not just themselves, but the last evacuees still moving to safety. Shield strength at critical levels, Mike reported through gritted teeth, but holding. For 2 full minutes, they endured the star's fury. When the flare finally passed, their ships were scorched and strained, but intact. More importantly, every single colonist was safe. "Damage report," Captain West called out. "Shields at 5%, Mike responded. "Power systems strained but functional. No casualties." The alien observers were stunned into silence. The humans' cowardly preparations had just accomplished what their warrior cultures had deemed impossible. Captain West looked at her crew, pride evident in her eyes. "Begin withdrawal sequence. Let's get these people to safety." As the fleet pulled away from the now empty colony, carrying the last survivors of the Drakon system, they had proved something important. True courage wasn't about facing danger unprepared, but about being ready for whatever the universe might throw at you. Behind them, the star raged on, but its fury had failed to defeat human caution and preparation. The Earth fleet pushed their engines to maximum safe speed, moving away from the dying star with their precious cargo of refugees. Inside the ships, medical teams worked tirelessly, treating the last evacuees while engineers monitored their strained systems. "Status of the star?" Captain West asked, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. "Core collapse beginning," Mike Davis reported grimly. "We have maybe 20 minutes before supernova." Through the viewports, they could see the star's surface churning violently. What had once been a steady red giant was now pulsing erratically, its outer layers beginning to fall inward. The sight was both beautiful and terrifying. The observing ships from the warrior races had moved to a safe distance long ago. Now they watched in amazement as the human fleet maintained perfect formation despite their heavy damage and full passenger loads. "Shield strength still critical," Lieutenant Parker reported, "but holding at 3%. Emergency systems keeping us stable." Captain West nodded. "Maintain course and speed. No heroic bursts of acceleration. Slow and steady gets us all home safe." The humans' methodical retreat was another example of their careful nature. While other species might have pushed their engines beyond safety limits to escape faster, the Earth fleet kept to their planned withdrawal speed, protecting their exhausted systems and vulnerable passengers. "Message from the Galactic Council," Pete Brown announced. "They're requesting our evacuation procedures and shield modification data." A small smile crossed Captain West's face. "Tell them we'll provide full documentation after we get these people to safety." The star's death throes intensified. Massive waves of plasma shot out in all directions as its core continued to collapse. The human sensors, another excessive precaution, gave them plenty of warning to adjust their course around these dangers. 15 minutes to critical mass," Mike reported. "We're still within the blast radius." In the medical bay, Dr. Anna Wilson supervised the treatment of the last radiation exposure cases. The extra medical supplies they'd brought, once mocked as unnecessary, were proving invaluable. 12 minutes, came the update. "Star's magnetic field is collapsing." The fleet maintained their disciplined retreat. Every ship kept its assigned position, their formation designed to provide mutual support if their weakened shields failed. It was the kind of detail that their cowardly planning had accounted for. 10 minutes. Core temperature reaching critical levels. Through the fleet's sensors, they could see the star's outer layers starting to pull away from its core. The sight was unprecedented. No one had ever observed a supernova from this close before. "All ships, begin radiation recording sequence," Captain West ordered. "Let's make sure something good comes from this disaster." The humans' scientific instruments, yet another unnecessary addition to their rescue ships, began gathering valuable data about the star's death. Even in retreat, they found a way to advance knowledge. 5 minutes to supernova," Mike announced. "We're almost at safe distance." The tension on the bridge was palpable, but controlled. Every crew member knew their job, knew the procedures, knew exactly what to do if something went wrong. Their excessive training meant no one panicked. 3 minutes. Core collapse accelerating. In the refugee areas, human crew members helped calm the evacuees, their careful preparation having included training in handling traumatized survivors. They kept families together, provided comfort, and maintained order. 1 minute, came the final warning. "Brace for initial shockwave." Captain West opened a channel to all ships. "This is what we prepared for. Stay in formation. Trust your training." The star's core finally collapsed completely. For a brief moment, it seemed to implode, drawing in all its outer layers. Then, in a flash brighter than a billion suns, it exploded. The shockwave reached them first, a wall of energy that tested their weakened shields to their limit. But the humans' careful positioning and multiple backup systems held firm. Not a single ship was lost. As the light of the supernova washed over them, the alien observers finally understood. The humans' cautious nature, their obsession with safety, their endless preparation, it wasn't weakness. It was a different kind of strength, one that had just saved 50,000 lives. Captain West watched the stellar explosion with quiet satisfaction. They had done it. Their cowardly approach had succeeded where warrior cultures had feared to try. "Set course for the safe zone," she ordered. "Let's get these people to their new home." Behind them, a new nebula began to form from the star's remains, a testament to both destruction and renewal, and to the power of human preparedness. The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council was packed beyond capacity. Representatives from every spacefaring race had gathered to witness something unprecedented, a formal recognition of human achievement. The Earth fleet had returned triumphant, having saved every single colonist from the Dracon system. Captain West stood before the council, her uniform still showing signs of the ordeal they'd survived. Behind her sat Tom Miller, the human representative who had first volunteered Earth's help, a quiet smile on his face. "In all our records," the council speaker began, "no rescue operation of this scale has ever achieved a zero casualty rate. Yet you humans, whom many dismissed as too cautious, too fearful, have accomplished exactly that." The Crack's ambassador, who had once mocked humanity's careful nature, stepped forward. "We need to understand how you did it. Your shield modifications alone saved thousands when that final flare hit. Our scientists say such protection should have been impossible." "Nothing impossible about it," Mike Davis replied from his place beside Captain West. "We just tested and refined the design until it worked. Took 300 attempts, but we kept at it until we got it right." The chamber buzzed with conversation. The warrior races, who prided themselves on swift action and bold decisions, were struggling to comprehend this different approach to heroism. "Your evacuation procedures," the Volshar representative added. "The organization, the backup systems, the medical preparations, we called it excessive, but every single measure proved necessary." Dr. Anna Wilson stepped forward. "We learned these lessons through centuries of handling our own disasters. Every procedure, every precaution, was written in someone's blood. We weren't about to ignore those lessons." The council speaker raised his hand for silence. "The question before us is clear. The human approach to crisis response has proven superior to our traditional methods. Their so-called cowardice has shown itself to be wisdom." Lieutenant Parker, standing with the other fleet officers, spoke up. "We don't see it as cowardice or wisdom. We just call it being prepared. On Earth, we have a saying: hope for the best, plan for the worst." The chamber fell silent as Captain West stepped forward to address the council. Her voice carried clearly through the vast space. "What you call cowardice, we call responsibility," she declared. "True courage isn't about rushing blindly into danger. It's about understanding the risks, preparing for them, and then facing them anyway. Every safety measure, every backup plan, every drill we ran, that wasn't fear. That was our commitment to saving lives." The council members nodded in understanding. The warrior races, who had watched the humans endure the star's final fury without flinching, could no longer question their courage. "The council proposes," the speaker announced, "that Earth's emergency response protocols be adopted as the galactic standard. Furthermore, we request that human experts begin training other species in their methods." Tom Miller stood up. "Earth would be honored to share our knowledge. But remember, our methods aren't about avoiding danger. They're about facing it intelligently." The chamber erupted in approval. The same races that had once mocked human caution now celebrated it. They had witnessed firsthand how preparation and planning could accomplish what brute force could not. Captain West and her crew received the highest honors the Council could bestow. But more importantly, they had changed the galaxy's understanding of what it meant to be brave. As the ceremony concluded, the Council speaker made one final announcement. Let it be recorded that on this day, humanity taught us all a valuable lesson. True courage wears many faces. Sometimes it carries a shield rather than a sword. Sometimes it plans rather than charges. Sometimes the greatest bravery is found not in what we dare to do, but in how carefully we dare to do it. The human crew stood proud, their cowardly nature now recognized as something else entirely. A unique form of courage that had saved 50,000 lives and changed galactic culture forever. As they left the chamber, Captain West turned to her crew, ready to head home. After we double-check all systems, Mike Davis replied with a grin, and run a full safety protocol. The humans laughed together, comfortable in who they were and what they represented. They had shown the galaxy that caution and courage could go hand in hand, and that sometimes the most heroic act was simply being prepared. Behind them, the council chambers buzzed with excited discussion as races began planning how to implement human safety protocols. A new era had begun, sparked by the species that dared to be careful.